If you're just joining us, we're speaking, of course, about the situation in Minneapolis involving George Floyd, an innocent African-American man who was murdered in broad daylight. Let's just call it for what it is, by 4 officers. At least 3 of the officers had body parts on George Floyd. One was a knee, another one was a leg and an arm. In a new camera view, you could see clearly 3 officers pinning him down. It appears to be, and I don't think I'm a genius by saying this, the one officer who put the knee on this guy's throat is probably the main culprit reason why this man was murdered. But you had 3 other officers that enabled and did absolutely nothing. And to this day, to this time, at 9:30 in the morning on a Friday, no arrests have been made. Complete incompetence by those in charge there. It goes from the top all the way down. And joining us on the line right now, his name is Jordy Foy. He works for Kare 11. And he's been covering this for his station right there in Minneapolis. Jordy, thank you for joining us. How are you?
Hey, what's up, Jordy?
Hey, how's it going?
Doing great.
I'm well. It's been a long night.
I can't even imagine. So when we spoke to you, I believe it was yesterday, right? Did you have any premonition that it would be like 10 times as bad last night? Because you were on the ground there the night before. Did you think that it would have been as bad as it was last night, and why? Why do you think? Because what I think is the county attorney, Mike Freeman, his statement certainly didn't help the cause any. I think that was a part of it. But what do you make of all this? Did you foresee this happening?
I honestly thought things were going to die down. And I was out yesterday taking some pictures of some of the unrest in St. Paul. And I think that's when I kind of realized this might get bad. There was looting, there was, fighting. It was insane. You see these kinds of protests and this kind of behavior erupt, later on in the night, but this was in the middle of the day. And it crept into St. Paul from Minneapolis and then into the suburbs. They were closing down businesses 25 miles away.
What do you make of your mayor, Jacob Frey? Because I've been openly criticizing him because I thought the move, to allow these burnings to – listen, I know he didn't want these buildings to burn down like Precinct 3. But with that being said, you have a bunch of police officers. The National Guard was supposed to be in there already. What do you make of his response? Because it seems to be the opposite of what the governor said this morning in a press conference of allowing – because that's really what he did. Let's just call it for what it is. He said the reason why he didn't want police out there because he doesn't want anyone else to be hurt or killed. But what do you make of that decision of just, allowing some of these criminals, that's what they are, to burn down these buildings?
I think his number one priority, he was really trying to keep people safe. But this is kind of a layered issue because this is unprecedented. People criticize him for maybe not having a plan. Or not being clear on his plans, both him and the mayor of St. Paul. But how do you have a plan for this?
That's a good point, and I understand that. You make a valid point there. It's very difficult to plan for something like this to happen. That is fair, and maybe the mayor – go ahead.
But then again, people want action. People want to plan, and this is such a divided topic because some say, like, these people need to be arrested. They're criminals. Some say they're demanding justice. This is their right. This is, a problem that has been seen for generations and generations. So, how do you navigate that situation as a public official?
That's a good question. So now I'm going to ask you, and maybe it's the billion-dollar question. The governor, in a press conference not that long ago, the press conference is still going on. The governor spoke, and he said they are not going to allow people to burn down buildings tonight. How? What is he going to do to prevent that from happening?
I wouldn't be surprised if the National Guard had a bigger role in activities tonight, if there were activities. I know, at a certain point, they came in and they started controlling the situation around the precinct. But I think tonight, if things were to unfold like they did, where, nearly 200 businesses were burned, people were hurt, I think National Guard will step in and play a bigger role.
If you're just joining us, we're speaking with Jordy Foy. He's with Kare 11, covering this for his television station. I remember when October 1 happened a couple years ago. And, Jordy, I've been living in Las Vegas for 20 years. And we were the story, sadly, for weeks. Everybody was here, CNN, Fox News, MSNBC. We were the story in the world, really. And when I was walking around where the shooting happened, I kind of I felt like I was in a dream. Like it didn't feel like a bad dream. It felt like it wasn't real life. This is your city, Jordy, right? You live there. You work there. Do you get that same feeling? Like this doesn't even feel real?
Of course. I mean, there's places that you see, like, for example, yesterday, we were in a neighborhood where I used to live, not five minutes away, and these buildings you're seeing looted, that's one thing. But then you see them burning, and that's a whole other situation. It doesn't seem real, and you kind of ask yourself, is this what grieving looks like? Is this what this protest really wants to become? Because I think, it's losing, to some people, it's losing sight of, honoring George Floyd.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's looking like to a lot of the country like a tragedy is being exploited to, for personal enrichment and just to cause chaos. So one thing that I've been kind of curious about is you look at these 4 officers, especially Derek Chauvin. He obviously isn't in custody. Is there? And I think to myself, maybe the reason is because if he does say they put him in custody and he doesn't actually get charged or convicted of these crimes, the reaction could be even worse. Do you think there's there has something to do with that as far as before he goes into custody, they want to make sure that he will be convicted and charged with this crime?
Well, the district attorney brought up a good point yesterday in her interview. She's like, she wants to make, she really simplified it. She wants all the ducks in the row. She doesn't want anything to slip through the cracks.
Right.
And I think some people forget, too, like, these kinds of investigations and, something this high profile is going to take time.
I agree. I agree that it will take time. I just didn't like it the way that the county attorney, Mike Freeman, worded it yesterday.
Right. Yeah.
I want to ask you. I have to ask you something that I think it shows you how serious this situation is. If you don't already know, I heard a rumor that there were choppers out there, helicopters, news helicopters, and that there were people pointing lasers to the helicopters, which could cause a pilot to lose control of a helicopter and crash. And if it crashes in a crowd of thousands of people, I can't even imagine how many people would die. Is that true? Did that happen last night?
Sadly, yes. Yeah, I was in the newsroom, and we actually had to move our helicopter pilot away from the scene because people are pointing lasers.
Oh, my God.
That is absolutely disgusting and embarrassing. So of the 200 businesses that were burned, obviously there was a Target and AutoZone. How many were small businesses, Jordy?
I wouldn't be able to comment on that, but, a lot of the businesses in that area are small community-owned businesses. And so it's heartbreaking for them because, not only are we in the middle of a pandemic and, our state, we're kind of starting to reopen slowly, and a lot of businesses, restaurants, salons, stuff like that are opening, in a couple of days here.
Sure.
And now they won't be able to open.
That's sad.
And it's going to take a lot of neighbors leaning on neighbors to rebuild. But right now, I think, like the governor said, they've got to get order in the streets before they can even start, this conversation of, like, how do we come back from this? Like, no matter what side of the political spectrum we fall on, like, we're going to have to work together to create a new normal.
No question. No question. It could take months, maybe even years. The library was burned down. You got a precinct that was burned down. Local businesses shattered. Well, Jordy, let me say this before we let you go, man. Besides the fact that we really do appreciate you taking some time to come in. I know it's been a long couple of days for you. Please stay safe, my friend. Your family. Yes, please stay safe. You're doing a great job out there, and we appreciate you coming on. Please have a safe weekend, okay, Jordy? And thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot, Jordy.
Jordy Foy doing a great job as a producer there over at Kare 11 covering this story, helping to get the story up.